Welcome back to Real Talk for an Unreal World. We have a reoccurring guest today, and his name is Matt Schmidt. Matt Schmidt is a quantum healer in the field of navigating individuals into a deeper state of consciousness so they can help alleviate themselves or find the traumatic experiences within themselves using a deeper state of consciousness. So you actually end up being the one who heals yourself. But we're going to use this with the conversation surrounding mental health and mental health awareness. So one of the conversations that we're going to have is regarding anxiety, depression, addiction, and how these are patterns of thinking. But more often than not, these patterns of thinking are created from traumatic experiences in our lives, where we teach ourselves to distract from processing that emotion. And when we teach ourselves to distract from processing an emotion, it creates mental health patterns and behaviors that are debilitating to our growth and often can hold us back from having real experiences within life, within other individuals, within connecting to ourselves, and with really just being our true authentic self, because we have hidden from parts of ourselves that we do not want or know how to look at and process. So in this episode, we're going to talk about that because I think it's something that we can all relate to these days. Mental health doesn't have to be only situated around schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder or autism. Mental health is just that of which holds a human back. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to figure out ways and to see new ways to heal ourselves or just become aware to help us alleviate ourselves from those patterns, habits, and behaviors, because we have the power to undo anything that we have created in our life to help us grow to our highest, most true possible self. So I really hope you enjoy the conversation today, because there's a lot of good things in here. A lot of good things in here for parents that are trying to communicate with kids, or ADD, ADHD, like all these things. We're gonna talk about new perspectives and the topics surrounding them. So I appreciate you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I had having it. Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk for an Unreal World. Very excited again to have Matt Schmidt back on the show. Matt's insights and understandings of an ability to have conversations surrounding topics that are typically not talked about around mental health from another perspective. Because a lot of the avenues and conversations centralized around mental health leads an individual to prescription drugs. And the conversation surrounding wellness is one that we're going to have today, because it's going to allow you to see what you're going through from another perspective. And I truly believe that perspective is the thing that can change your entire reality. It did that in my life. It did that in Matt's life. So that's why I try and have conversations with individuals where we can open up avenues for you to see something a different way and have these breakthrough moments in your life where you can overcome these things on your own. So today we're going to talk about mental health. So welcome back, Matt.
Thanks, Justin. Glad to be here again. So really looking forward to this one. This is an area that was just coming in my life so many times that I feel like I can kind of bridge all these gaps for people. Like, I've lived it. I've worked on the drug development side of it. I've worked on like the therapy side of it. And like now I do this. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of come full circle. And I feel that that I have a pretty well-rounded view of basically how to get people where they need to get. And I did not know that. I thought I knew. It turns out it was not the way, and it wasn't really helping anyone. And I think that by exploring some of these things today, people will realize that they do have power over this, that they can change this, that that you're not a victim of what's happening to you. There's a reason for all of it. Like, there's a reason you're experiencing things the way you are, the way you're feeling, and all that can be changed. So that's the beauty of it.
Well, just when you're talking about that, something that comes to mind for me, like when I think about mental health, like mental health is an inability to process emotions in a way. I don't know. I don't know if that's correct to say, but I feel like it is. I feel like everything is centralized around an emotional experience. But once we process an emotional experience, we're alleviated from psychological patterns. Like if we take depression, for example, like depression has us in a low vibrational state, sadness, an inability to move forward, an inability to find this love within self. But there is an attachment to something within us, an emotional attachment that needs to be alleviated for us to live in this space. So I think it's cool that that you've experienced all these things. And the really cool thing with you is that, like you said, the academic side, you worked in the employment side, you have the lived experience, and most importantly is you have the results. Like, your story is really amazing. Matt spoke about some of his stories in the previous episode. So can you just talk about a little bit about the academic side that you've been through, just to give people clarity? Because a lot of times people they like that substance, they like degrees, and they like to hear that the individual did the institutional way of learning. So can you lead on to a little bit about that?
I've been down that path, and I always felt that I always wanted to help people. Like, I knew from very early on, I came here for something big. I came here to help people. I didn't know what that was. I had a certain idea of how that looked because of, what our society shows us. And I really thought I was helping people. And for the most part, I was, but it's not a long-term solution. like these are short-term solutions. These aren't lifelong solutions because you're not actually getting to the root of the issue. But I worked in central nervous system disorders. That was one of the areas that I worked in. So treating things like everything from depression to schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder. And I see the world differently now, but I really thought I was doing something good. And the way that they view the world is almost like this Newtonian way of looking at things, kind of like if your car was broke. Oh, this isn't working, let's fix it. Well,
you're talking about pharmaceutical companies,
from
right?
a pharmaceutical perspective. So
right.
My old mentality was, if there's not a solution for in terms of drugs that we can give you, we just didn't find it yet. That was the way I viewed the world. And I really thought that was the solution. I was really invested in that. I really thought I was helping people. Now I kind of look at that work as kind of like putting tape over the check engine light in your car and being like, yep, it's fixed. See, the light's gone. You didn't actually get to the root of the problem. And by addressing these things with kind of what I know now, you heal from the inside out, rather than just looking at the mechanism of it. So that's kind of the way that the medical world views it. It's like, oh, this is wrong in the body, let's change this. Oh, there's a chemical imbalance of this. But you never get to the why. You never get to that root level of why the hell do you feel this way in the first place? And when you can address that, that's where the magic is. Hey, otherwise you're just throwing drugs at symptoms, especially with some of these more profound ones, not to compare, but I mean, when people are really knocked out of the park with schizophrenia and they can't function in society, or heavy depression where you're on disability, and these things that really heavily impact people, you're not going to get an answer. We want to throw drugs at it. We want to get rid of the symptoms, and we want to basically numb you so you don't feel, and then try to forget about you. But that's not a solution.
Yeah, that happened in my family with a family member as well. She was debilitated by depression, and she ended up just becoming a guinea pig. And it was incredible until it took her to a point where she taken enough pills that she tried to kill herself. And then she was put into the hospital, and she was put under observation, and they removed all of the pills from her, and she never went back on a pill again. So, that what you're saying right there about masking symptoms and just trying drug after drug after drug on a human, it kind of, I saw it in my own family. And I mean, it's pretty common to have that just to be forgotten about, because no one's actually having the conversation about the core issue, like Matt says. And this is one conversation we're having for depression, but addiction is the same thing. When I came out of my addiction, they wanted to medicate me with all kinds of drugs. And I told them no. I said, no, I don't need anything. I'm going to understand myself from within, and I'm going to get to know myself from within. And I did that. And had I taken, I would have altered my being, my vibrational frequency, and I wouldn't have flowed through all of the feelings, emotions, and experiences that I needed to flow through. And that's a big part of the journey, but people are afraid of that.
Yeah, afraid to feel. And that's really what happens. That's where stuff gets stuck, because you look at any of these things, none of that stuff's happening now. Right. None of the stuff that's affecting you is really happening now. It's all these things in your mind. You talked about perspective. Awesome. Like, you can't change the past, but you can change how you relate to the past. And all these things are accumulated. You look at a 2-year-old, they're not depressed. They don't have these problems. It's because life happens. And then we attach to those things. And it's our relationship to the past that's keeping us stuck. So staying in that like prolonged sadness, like you said, for depression, or with, I see anxiety and depression as kind of like opposites. Anxiety is worrying about the future. Depression is being stuck in the past. So the reason why that happens is different from case to case. But when you're focusing too much on the future, that's where the anxiety comes from. And it usually stems from maybe not having control, or, like a lot of different things that could make that pop up. Mine was so bad that I would have a test on Friday. I wouldn't sleep Monday through Friday. Like it was just like that heightened state of worry. And then by the time you get to that actual event, it's not that bad, but like you create this scenario in your mind that makes it that. So once you can change that and be like, okay, well, the test is going to be the test, and just show up for it, like that's where you make the great stride. So
Yeah, anxiety, the fear, it's almost like as if it's a judgment of self, or the fear of judgment of others, and the fear of judgment of the experience, failure, like success. There's so many hypotheticals and assumptions that are created. And something I thought about with anxiety is like you attach more so to the anxiousness, those thoughts. So with anxiety, if the moment you begin to become anxious. So for me, when I talk to people about this, it's like, that's your moment. That's your moment to choose to follow the anxiety and create a scenario for the character to become anxious about, or stop yourself right there, realize that there's nothing to become anxious about because that thing that you're anxious about hasn't yet happened, or you're in control of your own personal awareness of your own self-judgment. So it doesn't matter if others judge you. And that just training that pattern of thinking will over time alleviate you from the anxiety. But attaching to the story, creating this scenario for the character to go in, that to become anxious around, that's what people go with. And they get lost in that cycle. Do you believe, is that true? Or
I believe it. I think the way that you're describing does work, but it's hard to do. That takes some like self-discipline. That takes a lot of effort. With kind of the way that I address things now is like, we get right to the core fast. So I had someone, they had bad anxiety about like, she would get anxious when she would go over bridges, but it was just ones where she couldn't see the other side. And she had all this list of things that made her anxious. And in 30 seconds, we were back when she was 5 years old. Her parents were getting divorced, and she didn't know what was going to happen. And this fear of the unknown was in all these parts of her life. By addressing one thing, that broke that whole cycle. It's just like, nope, not a thing. So that's kind of the power of addressing like the root of things.
So the trauma is associated with the mental health behaviors that we carry.
It's noodling around on repeat. Like, even if otherwise it's like trying to overpower a computer with a calculator. Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, those are great things. But I think it's more important to get it to, well, why do you feel this way in the first place?
Interesting. I agree with that. I mean, trauma is the core of everything. And the last podcast that we did, where we talked about you experiencing trauma in the womb because your mother had a previous child to you that she lost, and you felt that you were the child that was never good enough, or maybe your mother was feeling that within herself, that loss of that first child, that translated in with you. That got huge response. People had not heard that perspective. And then when it was translated the way through you in a personal experience, that really woke a lot of people up to understand that maybe some of the trauma is far beyond their memory, yet it was there.
Sure. And before you're like, oh my gosh, I screwed up my kids, just know that a lot of this unconscious level, and like there's so much more going on. And they're actually finding this scientifically, believe it or not. I like to bridge this gap for people. There's if you look up epigenetic inheritance, that's what this like is called now. And they've actually discovered, even 3 generations out, that there's certain genetic markers that are triggered in people that are offspring of Holocaust survivors. Like 3 generations out, they're still experiencing the trauma physically and genetically from that event.
Because the energy is exchanged from one human to another. Because that's what we are. Everything is
So
energy.
we
Like,
know that in our world, but now science is like, holy crap, this is actually a thing. Like these people are
yeah.
affected from something they've never experienced.
Yeah, it's interesting. My wife and I were talking about that, the energy that we can carry from past lives, but also like the beauty of being able to break or
Sure.
process that energetic connection that has been going on for timelines, those karmic sort of lessons or behaviors that are being passed on to us. We have the ability to end that cycle and start something new in our lives. So you're talking a little bit about schizophrenia. This is an
Yeah.
interesting subject. What
I love this one because I've worked on the other side of it. There's no solutions. What I find with some of these cases is they're pretty tapped in, but it's hard to have a foot in both worlds. So part of them is way out there. They're super connected to everything, but then being in this world is difficult. It'd be like if you were running around with a head full of acid or something all the time everywhere you went. It'd be difficult to function in the real world. So
right?
their consciousness is out there a lot of the times. In other cultures, there's support for these people. Like a medicine man takes you under the wing. They show you like the ropes. They teach you the way of life. It's still a hard path, but they don't. There's support for you. We don't do that here. We think
Yeah,
there's something wrong with you. We need to fix you.
you're exactly right. The guides and teachers for these individuals is just we lack that. Like the system immediately scoops these people up and says that they're a danger to society or a danger to themselves. Therefore, the gifts or the connections that they have are never fully unraveled.
Yeah. Every person I've worked with, they're like, yep, this is the gift they chose for this lifetime. Really? Okay, so tell me more. And then they teach them how to use that and to balance it. And really that's the whole work that we do together. And like all the other stuff falls into place for them because they're able to bring that piece into a vision that they can function. So same thing with like dissociative identity disorder. Not always, but I've had that come through where that is their superpower. That they're able to process things and be able to solve problems from 17 perspectives simultaneously. And that is what is going to be their biggest strength. So it was teaching them how to use that. Otherwise, also they're missing chunks of time. They're not remembering stuff, not helping.
Right.
So by teaching them how to use that and connect with those parts at will, then they can use it as a gift. So
And it's funny, like I can see how society and this system would reject these people because there's no way for these abilities to be put inside of a box and therefore get some sort of work out of them.
part of the reason that these other personalities pop up often is that people don't want to deal with stuff. So a part of them breaks off and then they separate from these parts of themselves and their personality kind of splits off. So that's part of the reason it's created, but also it was interesting that that survival mechanism was also how they were going to function. So it actually goes full circle. So
it becomes a tool of survival.
yeah, but then the second level of that is actually how to use that that technique that they've learned in their work. So the one person was actually a nurse and she was just struggling with work, and now she's a shamanic practitioner and just taken off. Like she found her like spot and boom.
So, like, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, it doesn't seem like the systematic way of life, like fitting into these, job titles and things like that would really work for an individual with that kind of.
They didn't come here to fit in. These like anyone like these neurodivergent people, like if you're trying to fit yourself into a box that you don't fit in, it's going to be rough until you can break down that box and start being you. That's when you're going to find that like freedom and that happiness and joy.
I think that's for everyone. I mean, so many people that I've been speaking to these days, they just feel unhappy and they're just so sick of doing the same thing over and over. And I think that that is a great observation as well, because that causes mental health. That is an instability within emotional understanding of yourself. So, I mean, if you carry that out, you're going to create mental health patterns surrounding that because you're not breaking free and doing what you love or becoming self-aware to say, hey, this isn't working for me anymore. Like, I'm going to just keep continuing with this. That's when depression and distractions and, like overeating, shopping, video games, social media, sex, porn, like all these other things come into play to mask this feeling that we know we're feeling and create these mental health scenarios out of. So the box is not fit for individuals that have these gifts. Let's take, I don't know how you feel about autism. Like my nephew's autistic, and I look to the world as being teachers. All the humans that I meet, Matt, my wife, people that I meet in the world, these are teachers, are brothers and sisters. Everyone's come here to teach each other something. And my nephew, he's so incredible. He's 11 years old, and he's the first individual I've ever met that was pure love, that was not obstructed even by life's experiences, even though society says he's different, because he's now self-aware enough to know that the kids in school call him different. But he asks, his mom and myself, like, what does it mean to be normal? And we try to explain to him, like, you are normal. We are the ones that are different. Like, you have the love, you have this understanding of just pure kindness, empathy, and compassion. And you just are that. And it's an incredible thing to see society want to medicate him. So what do you think about that?
So for 7 years, I actually worked at a school for kids with special needs. We talked about this last time, and a little bit. And I think it's interesting. Like, it's so amazing that these kids are so perceptive. They know, they know what's up. But especially when I started learning more about this, like this world and stuff, like they're tapped into stuff that we can't even comprehend yet. So I'm trying to get to where some of these kids were that I knew. And I've actually been honored to work with some of my former students, and all the autistic kids, they never go to lifetimes here. It's always other planets. And they always tell me the same thing. They're like, oh, I came here to teach unconditional love. I came here because Earth needed help. I came here to raise the vibration of the planet. And I came here to help. I came here to help. I came here to help. And like, that's what it is across the board.
Really?
So, yeah.
You asked them these questions when you worked there?
No, after this, I moved away from that job, and I started doing this. And I've been able to work with some of the kids that I used to have.
Explain again what you do. I think it's important for people to do.
I worked at a school for kids with special needs, and then I transitioned into the job that I do now, which I wouldn't really call it a job. What I do is quantum healing, where I take people in a deep state of trance to go back to things that are affecting them, and I just ask them anything, basically kind of what's impacting their life now, and basically getting them to a better version of themselves, whatever that looks like. So these kids don't need to be fixed. Like, I'll get some parents like bring me their kid. They're like, oh, can you fix my autistic kid? I'm like, there's nothing wrong. It's the parents that need the help. Yeah. So it's a lesson of acceptance for the parents. Like, they're teaching you, not the other way around.
My cousin, she thank the Lord, that my nephew was brought to her, because she just is like that. She's taken on this child, and in the beginning she was really worried, and she didn't get a normal child, right? And then, a couple years in, she's like, wow, I was given the gift, because she was able to be receptive enough to learn from the gift. But many parents are the problem. You're absolutely right. And I mean, you don't have to have a child that's autistic. I mean, the education system is filled with parents that are extremely controlling.
It's tough, like having a kid like that. But it's also like, once you look at it as an opportunity to learn and grow from, that's when things can start to shift. Not, oh, I need to fix this kid. Oh, they need to be like this. No, they don't. Like, come here to teach you some of the more important things in life.
And it's important for what Matt just said right there, like, is to take that opportunity in your own life as well. Like, if you're an individual who's experiencing mental health in whatever form, mental health can be looked at from two perspectives. It can be debilitating, or it can be an opportunity to learn about the thing that has you attached to that mental health behavior. That's what it is. Generally, it's just an inability to speak your truth. I mean, to go into the truth. Like, the heart is true. That's what love is. It's the truth. And to alleviate yourself of anything that holds you back, you just have to tell the truth to yourself and process things and really just use love as the tool. And what Matt does is he helps guide you into these places where, you don't want to go, or you don't know how to go into these doors. He's really good at doing it. I've done a session with him myself, and it's just incredible the things that you can unlock that the subconscious holds, because so much of what we are distracting from is held in the subconscious. And Matt's abilities with, using the methods that Dolores Cannon has been teaching others, which he has learned from, he's good at what he does. And he comes from an academic background with lived experience of struggling, overcoming trauma. That's what makes it so beautiful. And that's why I like to have him on the show, is because he's real, like we're not talking to somebody who hasn't been through everything they're talking about.
I would like to add that I also have all this stuff free on YouTube. So you can do this yourself. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes your time, takes your effort, but you have the choice. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I just dropped a video on how to process trauma fast. And like, I've already heard so many amazing things from that people just went through. It's less than 20 minutes. Like, you owe it to yourself, and you can make that choice right now. I didn't know there was options. Like, when before I did this, I didn't know there was a choice. I didn't know there was a way out. It's just like, oh, you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, you take these medications now. And they're like, well, for how long? No, you just take this now. Like, that's the solution. Okay. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. It is work. They call it inner work for a reason. It's work. But I haven't found a faster, more effective way to get you to a better place.
Yeah. And I mean, results are what speak, right? So Matt offers results. And I think that that's the most important thing. Medication offers results to distract you from what holds you back, for sure. Absolutely. Those are the results. That's why you step up. That's why you take the medication, and you think it's safe because a doctor gives it to you. So everything's right the way it's meant to be. Yes, it is for the pharmaceutical regime that is unrolling this medication, but that medication keeps you in one place and keeps you coming back for more. Whereas things that Matt is talking about in processing trauma, things that I did in my own life that alleviated me from, a 23-year drug addiction. Matt himself, 25 years in a drug addiction. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have any attachment to this thing today, simply because we went to the root of what had us attached to that problem. We processed it. There's all kinds of tools you can use for processing: kindness, forgiveness, compassion, empathy. They're beautiful tools. And I don't want you to think these are just words, because they're not just words. When you put forgiveness into a practice of processing a traumatic experience, let me tell you, it becomes physical. Like, the vibrational frequency that you will feel from forgiveness is real. It's incredible to feel, and you have that ability to do that, and lots of information out there. And Matt's YouTube channel is definitely a place that you should navigate to find these things. And I mean, giving it away for free.
And if you have an issue, reach out. I get back to people within 24 hours. Like, we'll figure it out together. So like, you're not alone in this. Like, everyone kind of feels that, I think, at some point, like, that they're the only ones struggling with this, or like their stuff is the worst. And it doesn't matter like what happened. Like, there is a way out. And I actually, before you like beat yourself up too, know that some of the toughest, most advanced souls that I come across, they pick some of the toughest shit. And I know you want to pick that if you didn't think you could handle it. So you are stronger than you think. Just know that, like, you would not have, your soul wouldn't have signed up for what you went through if you didn't think you could handle it. And so just knowing that, know that you are stronger than, other people have permitted you to believe.
Yeah, that's really great, because, you're the only one who holds yourself back. Like, if you feel like you're not good enough and you can't overcome this thing that you went through, then you are the one holding yourself back. But if you change your community, you change your environment, you change the way you think, and you change the way you feel. So by breaking free from the community, or finding a community, like just an individual like Matt, to be able to reach out to him and say, hey, like, this is what I went through. Matt hears all kinds of traumatic experiences, is what he does in his daily life. So for you to tell him that, sexual abuse or physical abuse or abandonment or neglect or an inability to communicate about how you feel about anything, or husband, or whatever it may be, like, he's heard it. So you don't have to fear speaking to an individual who is going to judge you, because he isn't. His whole process is to bring you to a place of self-awareness, to have you heal yourself. And he helped me do that in my life. And I was really grateful for it, because I didn't even remember these attachments that I had to certain energetic experiences. But with the work that he does, it's really beautiful, and it's personal, and it's private. You can just take the day off work. You set up an appointment with Matt, and all you need is a laptop, a microphone, right? Microphone. and in a little bit of private personal space. So, take a day off work, take a personal day. Like, what a beautiful thing to take a personal day to go on a journey within and try and unlock some doors that you've had locked for quite some time.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
On the other end of that too, I get people that they're like, oh, my stuff wasn't as bad as these other people. It's not significant. Yeah, it is. Your stuff is valid. It's just as significant as anyone else's. It doesn't matter if it's like a diet version of what someone else went through. It still impacted you. Your worst experience is still your worst experience to you. It may not be for someone else. So don't compare yourself to anyone else. It is relevant. It is valid. And you can still address it, because it's still affecting you.
Yeah, that's a good one. You're right. People do want to compare traumas, and it's like whatever's traumatic for the human is traumatic for the human. Your unique individual experience is unique and individual for you. We can't compare physical abuse to sexual abuse. The experiences and the trauma that the human holds could be two totally different things. We don't know. So you can't compare that to someone else. You just have to step in to your own world, into your own reality, and open up your own doors. I think we're always trying to compare ourselves with other people. And,
Yeah.
the new earth or this shift that we're seeing is people step out in themselves. And it's absolutely liberating when you're able to do that, because you don't have to pretend for no one. And my wife and I were talking about this last night. Like, we are living in a society that is encouraging you to pretend to be somebody you're not, encourage you to say things that you don't want to say, encourage you to wear clothes that you don't want to wear, and encourage you to do things you don't want to do. This is becoming normal, to be somebody we are not. So if you want to break that system and break free from all of the systematic barriers that are holding you back, like, just be yourself. And that is probably one of the most powerful tools you possess. If your teeth are crooked, if you're large, if you're small, if you speak funny, whatever it is, like, that is you. You came here to be you in that form. And if anyone judges you on that, move away from them, or just, really see them for what holds them back in their life. Because if someone else is judging you, geez, imagine the things that they've got going on in their life. And really, you can just view judgment from a standpoint of compassion and empathy and say, I feel for you, like, it's a beautiful thing to do.
Because literally none of that has anything to do with you.
Right, exactly. But we carry that. For some reason, we want to carry that. Well,
Yeah.
all these ideas from other people, and people do that quite often.
Mm-hmm. If you don't know where to start, be like, I feel like crap. I don't even know where this begins or where this starts. Start paying attention to the things that trigger you. Maybe someone will say stuff to you and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they were that way. That's something within you that needs to be addressed. And that's what I still do. When you're in a perfectly healed state, anything that anyone says or does really won't bother you. I mean,
Right.
you may feel like a bit of anger, but you won't get stuck there, or you'll feel like a frustration, or you'll feel like it's okay to feel all the feels, but like when something hits you into the core, there's something there that you're not dealing with. This is a good way to start being aware of, like, if other people's actions are triggering something in you, then there you go. That's where you need to start.
I'm happy you said that. Like, where do we start? Because that is the biggest thing for everyone. The reason they just stay in this routine where they're holding on to long-term pain, because they don't want to process anything, is just because they don't know where to start. Like, where do you begin with all this? I often say, like, removing the distractions from your life. You work a full work day, and then you find it acceptable to sit in front of Netflix for 4 hours a night, and you don't do any self-reflection. There's no time for yourself. Like, that's the first place you got to start looking. I mean, you have to make time for this kind of stuff. And you also have to remember that it's not easy, because we've been distracting from it for so long. So anything that we try when we first begin something is difficult. Absolutely. But especially when you start working on yourself. I've been in this phase of self-reflection here for like the last couple weeks. And, at first I wasn't sure what was going on with me. I felt like off, and I felt like just, I could feel like something was going on, but I was highly aware because I was off. So I had places to start putting my attention. I was like, okay, well, like, why am I feeling off? Why am I feeling awkward? Why am I feeling so aware of these responses that I make? And it's because I was actually focusing on ego, like really building a new relationship with ego, because the person that I was, 3 weeks ago is somebody I'm not today, because I'm always aware of who I want to be, and I'm able to analyze myself and catch myself more, because something as simple as a response to someone, just something you say to someone, catch yourself. Like if you don't like that, totally fine. It's actually an opportunity to be better on the next one. And I've been doing that, and it's, man, is it ever peaceful? I find like I'm in like a much more just more calm state. It's been really nice.
I saw a really good thing that was about anger, frustration, like all its forms. Like the talk was how to never be angry again. Really? Okay, I'm hooked. So this guy had a formula, and it was all like anger in all its forms comes from egoic thinking and plus the demand that reality be something different than it is. And I'm like, oh,
That's good.
that was good. And so it's art, like trying to change what's already there. Like these things that are out of our control. We're like, oh, why is this not this way? And it causes this like turmoil in us, and that builds and it accumulates. And you're like, why am I so drained? Why can't I sleep at night? And it's because you're trying to like force things into like the view you have in your head. And that's the only place it exists is in your head. So I use this analogy often, like a river is just a river. You can swim upstream if you want, but it's way easier to kind of go with the flow and use that energy to navigate what's already there rather than trying to control all these parts around you. It's a choice, like you're not going to change the river. The river's just going to be the river. So what are you choosing to do? And if you keep that up, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to have nothing left at the end of the day because you're trying to force things into something that like they're never going to fit into. So taking a step back, and I always ask myself, I have the note right here. Do I have control over this? If the answer is no, I don't put my energy into it. Getting so caught up in the things in the news. Your brain thinks that's happening to you. Like it doesn't know what you're feeding it isn't really happening. It's like your brain is cut off from the rest of the world. So it's only like source of input is what you're telling it. So be mindful of the things you're feeding it. You talked about sitting in front of Netflix. What are you watching? What are you listening to? All that stuff is feeding your brain, and like your brain doesn't differentiate. So that can be like debilitating in and of itself. So the other thing is letting go of this illusion of control. We think we're in control of these things, but like you're not. Don't take my word for it either. Try it out. Take a step back, let go of control of some of the things. The world is not going to fall apart. I was one of these people. That's why I'm bringing it up. And that was the part that was exhausting for me. That was the anxiety that was like all that was being fueled by it. And my brain was like so on all the time. Like I was prescribed like 6 milligrams of Xanax a night just to fall asleep because I couldn't shut everything off. Like, but it all came from this. Like you wouldn't give that to a horse. Looking back on it, I'm like, no one had a problem with this, huh? And I'd sleep for 2 hours and wake up again, like ready to go. Like, but once I let go of that part of like what I didn't have control over, it was like, it was so freeing.
I think with control also it's a great place to become self-aware of like a root core problem, because a lot of people that are trying to control a lot of things that are out of their control usually had a relinquishment of control in their own life, or they had a controlling mother or a controlling father, and that's a great place to come back to because that's a root core issue. So if we feel like we have to control everything, why is that? That's self-awareness, that's self-reflection, so you can really process that.
And if you don't do that, like it becomes other things. Like people that have had Parkinson's, it's from trying to control the things and people in their life. It's like left unchecked for so long that it turns into that. So you can dodge a bullet. Some of this stuff is so preventative. It doesn't have to become these like big conditions because you can address it now. Even if you're not sick, you can start addressing these things in your life now so that they don't become things.
Right. And I think sleep behaviors are so important. Diet, sleep, good water. I mean, these three things are the core fundamentals of like mental health, like positive mental health. If you have a good diet, you got a good sleep pattern, you're drinking plenty of water, this is what creates a foundation for strong mental health. So please take a look at your diet and your sleep patterns. And for many that aren't sleeping at night, it's because that's the time that you're alone with your thoughts. So if the mind doesn't shut off and you need drugs or you need something to shut the mind off, that's a great place to become aware. Okay, like Matt said, am I trying to control things that are out of my control? Am I creating hypotheticals and assumptions for things that haven't happened yet? Am I living in the future? Am I living in the past? Like these are all opportunities to become self-aware of the very reason why your mind is going certain places. It's more an opportunity to become a witness of what your thoughts are saying. What are they teaching you? Because they're trying to teach you something. And they're going out of control because you have no guidance and there's no education on how to slow them down or how to become aware of them. And that's, why we're having these conversations today, is to really bring an awareness, like, to what you can do. Like, we all have this ability to self-heal if we can self-reflect, if we can take a moment and see things from a different perspective. Like, that's how it all changes.
This just popped up. So like one of the things that I did when I started, before I knew any of this stuff, what made me become aware of my thoughts was I would count to 3 before responding to someone. I would like, because I was always like, I would be the person that would always interrupt people, I'd cut people off. I always had something to say to everything. I took a step back and I'd count to 3. And like, then I was like, holy crap. Like, and I started being aware of these thoughts that were just like, almost on like autopilot, where they're just like coming to the surface. I was very reactive. And then taking that step back, oh my gosh, that's when things started to shift for me. And you can do that. You can do that right now. You can do that in your life. And it really helps you become the observer of your thoughts and the stuff that's running in your subconscious mind.
And breaths, like, I slide this in here. Like, if you're taking a count of 1, 2, 3, take a deep inhale and a deep exhale at the same time, because then that slows the nervous system as well. That regulates the vibrational frequency and it really clears the mind. So it's a practice as well, but that's a basic one, 3 breaths. Good Lord. Like, if maybe you have to become the witness to say that I can't even take 3 breaths, and that's okay. That's an observation, but
start with one, baby steps.
Exactly. and that's just it, right? Though, like, just Matt's finds solutions, you just find a solution. You don't have to say, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. Well, then you're the person that is going to never allow yourself to heal. Like, because that's how it is. We are the person that never allows ourselves to heal because we set boundaries and barriers for us because things are hard.
You'll create that reality. Oh, I can't. Universe is like, okay, you can't. And then they'll make it not happen. Like,
exactly. Because words are a spell. Like, they really are. The conversation surrounding spells these days have been picked up by wizards and witches, and it's been manipulated into this thing that we see that, can't be obtained. But that's very incorrect. Words are absolutely a spell that you speak for yourself to bring and manifest a reality that you are living. It's typically done through thoughts and words, distributions of vibrations. So be very careful as to what you think you're saying. My wife and I, when we're sick, we don't even say we're sick. We either say we're healing, like I'm healing, or I'm unbalanced. And something so simple as that tricks the body into thinking, okay, well, there's another way I'm dealing with this imbalance within my body. And that imbalance is the result of me healing myself. And I'll tell you, like, if we get sick, it's usually the result of an immune system that needs to be upgraded. And after that, we just flow through it. Like, I can be around sick people. I've been around sick people all winter. Like, I'm not getting sick. Like, and I really truly believe, well, good diet, good sleep, drink lots of water. And I'm calm and still in my mind. I'm very self-aware. I self-reflect often. I'm very cautious with my community and what I take in. And that is all relative for what is left for me at night when I'm laying down with myself. So I think that we need to remember, like, the power that we possess. Like, I only have a handful of friends, man. I only have, like, I know so many people, like, they do this podcast and I'm out in the world and I love people so much, but my friends, like, man, I don't have many, because those are real relationships to me. Like, if Matt calls me in the middle of the night and says, Justin, I need 10 grand, and don't ask me about it. Okay, bro, I got you. You know what I mean? Because I trust you. And that's a friend. Or, like, I can tell him how I'm feeling, and not expect him to judge me for it. Actually, more so because he's my friend, I can open up about how I feel because I want to hear his perspective, because he's probably going to help me see myself in another light because he's my friend. That's so important for your mental health and your emotional well-being, is to have a support system around you of individuals like that. And if you don't have that, cut the ones that you have. Like, cut them. This is all part of the emotional and mental well-being capabilities that you possess, is to surround yourself with positive people, or people that are just seeking more. I think that's the real conversation.
And it's okay to be alone sometimes. Like
Gotcha.
that's where you make the progress. But when you're not clinging to those old relationships, it really sets you free. And believe it or not, it sets the other person free. I've worked with people on both sides of a relationship, and they both told me they were holding each other back by staying together. Do it out of love. It doesn't have to be a mean thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. You just, some people outgrow each other, and you're just done with that person in your life, and that's okay.
Like, and to think about, like, we were just talking about this, like, to become aware that your partner is holding you back, or quite possibly 5 to 10 years into the relationship, you see that this individual isn't aligning with you and who you want to be and who you want to grow to. I mean, I was in 2 7-year relationships. I was a total drug addict, mind you, but I tried to keep it together. The best thing those women ever did was leave me and go spread their wings and fly. The only thing I would have said to them is to do it sooner, but I was holding them back. I was manipulating and trying to be a narcissist, to be like, this is all me. This is all me. I need everything. But a lot of people that are in these relationships, they cannot break free for whatever reason: materialism, an inability to be alone, like the fear of the unknown. Take these things and use them as your advantage, because I'll tell you, once you're free from what holds you back, even if it's another human, like, you begin to think for yourself and you really begin to grow. And is life going to be difficult? Sure, absolutely. But like, it's meant to be difficult. Like, difficult situations are what help you appreciate the ones that are so beautiful, because you worked for them. And you got to put work in to get those kind of things to happen in your life. And a lot of the people, I take a look at myself, like the people that I'm surrounded by, are people that have had immense amount of struggles in their life, because
Sure.
they know themselves, right? Like, they've been through shit. Like, so because they know themselves, like, I can rely on them, like, they're not going to take from me. They've been through their own things in life. We know each other. We know that we know who we are. That's really important to see, that if you have an opportunity to struggle, like, go do it.
Yeah, even just now, think about all the proudest moments of your life. Was it easy getting there? No, if someone handed it to you, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Like with
Right.
anything.
Like, I think of you, Matt. Like, I mean, like, your story is pretty incredible. Like, it's just highly academically aware at a very young age, and you had all of these, like, goals that were set so high that you set yourself, and it took you down this avenue of academia, but anxiety and stress and drug addiction, and all of these possibilities that took you away from yourself. And then here you lost everything to truly find yourself. And it's like, that's the sacrifice today. Like, we're not up on top of temples, cutting the heads off of our brothers and sisters to sacrifice ourselves for some god in the sky. We don't do that today. Today, you sacrifice the materialism to find yourself. You sacrifice the relationship that you've been in for 20 years to find yourself. Like, that is sacrifice. You sacrifice the job that doesn't serve you to find yourself. Like, maybe, Matt went from creating pharmaceutical drugs to working with kids with disabilities, and he found that that was the greatest job, that he could have possessed, but totally different from what society says is successful.
Yeah.
He had to find that on his own. So don't be afraid to break free and try something new. Talk to me a little bit about ADD, ADHD.
I think those brains work different. I was diagnosed with that, but like I wouldn't change any of it now. It was a struggle in school. Like it was that actually like caused some of the depression, and like it snowballed into all these things. I was beating myself up because like I was struggling with things that I knew how to do, and it was so frustrating because I was proud, like, not to brag, but I was probably the smartest kid in the class. I just couldn't, like, if it was a test or whatever, I couldn't do it. In one class, had the lowest grade in the class, and I asked to be in a different room and to take the test, and I went from the lowest grade to like the highest grade in 5 years and on every test, like because I was able to like just finish it. But like I don't know, it was the things that were under the surface really became apparent when I started having like quantum physics and stuff like that, classes that really pushed you to like your limits. And I think a lot of these things go unnoticed if you're intelligent. They're just like, oh yeah, you don't have an issue, like because you're getting A's, like you don't have an issue with this. So I think it got missed for a long time, but like once things got hard enough, it was very apparent that those issues were still there.
Like,
um
do you, okay, sorry, just to ask you this real quick.
yeah.
Like, when I listen to what you just said there, school is probably the earliest place that we are finding this label ADD, attention deficit disorder, happen. And when I look at that and like listening to what you just said, like a lot of the information that was being given to you may not have been information that you really were wanting to hear or wanting to receive. Like, of course, your attention is going to be somewhere else if what you're trying to take in isn't what you wanted. Like, it's not the place you want to be.
It was the place I wanted to be, but the other like distractions at that would throw me off, and it'd be this jumbled mess in my head, and I couldn't process. Because there'd be so many things going on that my like way of thinking just didn't work. Like it was people getting up, people would finish before me, and it was like little things like that would seem like not even a deal to anyone else. And that was the issue. But like the real thing was my brain worked different. And once I learned that I was just different, it wasn't an issue then. Like I was like, okay, I do stuff different. No one ever taught me another way. It's like in school, it's like you fit in this box and this is how you learn.
Yeah.
And if you're outside of that, oh, you have this, oh, you have this, oh, you have this, not knowing that you actually have this strength because you can see things, you can see the world differently. Yeah. But that also means that you learn differently. So it's learning to help your brain function and to like function in society. And once you learn that, like the medication is just a tool. That's not going to help you like in and of itself. It's actually a tool to help you with these things. Now I'm not on any medication, and my thought is like way clearer than it's ever been. Like discovered like meditation and like all that helped way more than anything. While I was going to school, I think it was important, but now I love the way that my head works, especially working with people. I can be like all over the place and figure out all this stuff from ways that a normal person never would even consider. And it's one of the best things. I wouldn't change it.
So you just said there that, being on the medication as a tool worked at school. It worked at school because it helped you be like everyone else.
Yep.
See, and I'm glad we're talking about this because there's, Matt is not able to go to the doctor when he's in grade 7 and say, I have ADD, I need medication for it. His parents have to put him on it. So I think it's really important for parents to know, like, the classroom environment might be the place that is causing the attention deficit disorder because it doesn't work for the way the human's mind works. Because I'm the same way. Never worked for me either. I never took medication ever. I just stopped going like to school because school was pretty easy for me and I found it kind of boring. It just the way it was all set up. Like I was really, I don't know, I guess I was really aware to it. And some parents might feel like their kids need that in order to succeed in life. And sure, that's the way the system tells you that you're going to be successful, is by obtaining degrees and becoming a better employee than someone else. But like success is defined and unique to each individual. So I think really having conversations with your children when attention deficit disorder gets surfaced within the talk at the table, listen to your child and really allow them to be the ones to tell you what's going on and where the disconnection comes from. And one further than that, for Matt, like his brain was going all over the place from the trauma that had taken place in the womb. There was attention just constantly being thrown all over different places because of the way his mother was feeling. So that pattern of thinking was put into him at, as small as the embryo.
I honestly think that I was created this way by design. Like, I think that it allows my attention to tap into higher dimensions. And I think that some people would see that as a disability.
Interesting. So, well, we're certainly not talking about it that way.
I know. So I think we grew up in a different time. Like, I think there's starting to be more support for this. Like, hey, not everyone gets it this way. Like my daughter's like in math class and she gets shown 5 different ways how to do stuff. I didn't grow up like that. Like, that's not how we were taught. Like, this is the way. And once in a while you'd be shown another way, but they're like, hey, what way works for you? And I'm like, that is so cool. They're asking them to pick one way that works for them. It's not, you have to do it this way. And I think that's so beautiful because people can start to figure out their way in life. And that's really how you navigate life, is figuring out your way.
Yeah. I think, a lot of kids are torn from school because of the things that are going on at home. That's a big part of what's happening. Like if there's an emotional instability or, a misunderstanding of self that has occurred from home. When you try and put a child like that that's thinking about all these things that are out of its control, and you put it into a classroom and you tell it to learn a whole bunch of stuff for 8 hours, like its mind is not there. So, conversations with your children is everything before you start labeling them with whatever they have. But yeah, independent thinking is absolutely something that should be encouraged, because this systematic way of thinking and doing things the way everyone else is doing them. That's why I broke free from school, is because like this just didn't work for me. I saw how other kids were handling that within their own lives. And I saw like, okay, well, some of these guys are just going to pretend that everything's okay. I see that. I know that they're probably smarter than the teacher. Like, it's because I could see it, and then I can see other kids that are just goofing off in the back and they just don't care. Like, they're just done. So they really don't mind me. I just left. Like, I mean, for me, it was just over. I was like, okay, like I can do something better with my time. But because I had those emotional instabilities within myself, like I was already attaching to drug use because I couldn't communicate about it. So different avenues for different people. So conversation and communication with your children is how you can alleviate these possibilities of life to transform into their lives, right? That's why we have conversations like this. That's why I bring people on like this. And that's why this podcast is the way it is. It's because like it's real, and it's something that can help.
And I think encouraging them that nothing's wrong with them. Because that thinking something's wrong with me, like that kickstarts this whole like loop of depression and this whole like anxiety and this whole like everything that really doesn't even need to be there. It's just compounded by this idea that's not even a thing. So if you just say, okay, well, what way works for you and how do you learn, and like asking those good questions and letting them figure out themselves and not letting school get in the way of their learning, like those are all big things.
And also, I want to bring to everyone's attention that maybe they've tried to speak to their children, but their children won't speak to them, because I built up walls with my family till actually just like 3 months ago. I just that's the truth. I was never really, I built up a wall because I didn't know how to trust people, because I couldn't talk to people about how I felt when I was like 11, 12 years old. People weren't asking me the right questions, like Matt just said, because they didn't know the right questions. Yeah. So I built the wall up to keep everybody out, and I didn't trust anybody. That stayed with me until I'm just turned 40, and I just unlocked that 3 months ago. That was a second key I was given in this life, was to be able to unlock an ability to trust another human being after so long. And it was so beautiful, but geez, I took that with me for a long time. So if you have that disconnect with your child, Matt does offer what he does with children as well. Mm-hmm. And probably, I would assume you would see quicker results.
Yeah, kids are quick and they don't have as much baggage, and it's right. And they're more tapped in than us adults because they don't have all the static. But and you can actually do this with your own kids. Like if your kids are younger, one of the tools that they used to use is they would talk to the kids when they're in the bathtub, because the warm water reinduces this like theta state, and they can tap into the same stuff. So just start asking them questions. How do you feel? Tell me more about that. Why is that? And just start asking these like simple questions, and it's amazing some of the answers you'll start getting. So
yeah, the earlier you can communicate with your children, the better practice you will have and more results you will see in building a unique, authentic relationship with them. I feel like the ones that are preteen and teens, like, I mean, preteens these days, like, geez, like they're like 18, 19, it's like, what is going on? So
I wasn't thinking any of these thoughts, and I was like, come on,
man. And I think so much like that. It's not a preteen teen problem. It's a parenting problem. Like if you're not able to have open conversations with your children about, why they dress a certain way, why they speak a certain way, why they put down kids, or why they act a certain way. Like, I mean, that's really a parenting issue. Like if your kids aren't open with you, there's a reason for that. And it's because of communication, and establishing that communication at a very early age will really help them with their mental and emotional health, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to be guides. And, our lives are not always perfect, right? But it's through our struggles that we're able to share that and be vulnerable with our kids and say, hey, like when I was 15, I went through this, right? Mm-hmm. Parents don't want to do that for some reason.
I thought my parents were perfect. Exactly. My daughter didn't think that I could screw up. And I'm like, how did that happen? Like, like adults aren't infallible. Like, and so sharing those, like you said, being vulnerable, sharing those things, experiences, those are huge. And the biggest thing you can do for your kids, honestly, is being an example. They're watching every move, they're watching everything you do. Be the example of what you want for your kids.
Yeah. And sometimes that means talking about the things that you had to go through in life. Like, geez, like if you're able to step up and say, you know, I didn't always get it right. I made mistakes. One time I got too drunk and I went to a party and this happened. You know what I mean? Like, let your kids know who you are based on your experiences, because a lot of people restrict their kids from going to a party where there's alcohol. Well, why? Oh, well, it's no, because I said it was no, but give them the reason why it's no, because something happened to you in your life that lets them build a connection and an association with you as a person, not an authoritarian. So that to me was really helpful in my life when I was able to have those kind of relationships and see, you know, my parents for who they were, not what I thought they were. Just like Matt said with his daughter, like she thought he was like, you know, this, and I think that that's pretty normal for kids to think that way. You know, dude, that's why I like having conversations with you and just like being able to see where a conversation can go. You know, I had no idea that talking about mental health would lead us into all these beautiful places, but I feel like the conversation that we had today was certainly one that needs to be distributed.
I believe so. And when you can see it from, I mean, like, people say mental illness, and I'm like, it's not that at all. Like, I love how you said mental health. Yeah, because these are all aspects of things that every person addresses, and they're all things that you can do. So
yeah. And really like taking back the power in your own life. Like if you keep giving away your power for other people to tell you how you're going to feel, how you're going to heal, what you need to get to these places, like you're going to be confused along the whole road because you're not doing anything. And I get it. There might not be information and education and tools that you have, but you've got to think outside of the box of what the system is offering, because I mean, let's be real. People are unhappy today. You know, they're disconnected from each other, from themselves. They're medicated, they're overworked, they're underpaid, they're overstimulated. Like we have to take into all of this into consideration to really see where we are in this present moment. And that's okay. Like that's happening for some people, but you don't have to be an individual that's happening to. You can step back from all that and say, okay, like, you know, what avenue am I going to explore today? Like if these guys are saying that I can heal myself, like how can I do that? And, you know, maybe it's not the things that we talk about, but find someone that is connecting with you in the way that the language that you need to be spoken in. Just want to say thank you again, bro. Like I really appreciate it. And just real quick, like for people to be able to find you, that you want to pump you. So your YouTube is Matt Schmidt QH.
Yep. Matt Schmidt QH on pretty much everything. And we'll probably put the links in the comments below, huh?
Absolutely. Yes, we will link everything in. And please reach out to him if you're looking for someone to talk to. I know I had a few people message me from our last episode. I believe Matt was episode 33. So you can hear Matt's story of how he arrived to this place. They had told me that they'd reached out to you
I've had so many people reach out, and it's been so freeing for so many people. And even like members of my family got a little crunchy, but in grand scheme of things, people are to be able to connect some of the dots and they're able to put some pieces together, and like, nothing but good stuff. Like I see the big picture and it's just beautiful.
Cool, bro. Thanks again, man. I really appreciate you coming on, having these conversations and just sharing an awareness in your experience. Yeah, no, it means a lot to me.